Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I'm grateful to all those members who are here to join me tonight celebrating 10 years since same-sex marriage was legislated for in Scotland by an SNP government. 10 years does not seem long enough ago for something so simple to have happened, but I know how difficult it was and how much courage it took for politicians in this place to carry on and do the right thing, regardless of well-funded detractors and entirely normalised homophobia, lesbophobia and biphobia in much of the press and in their correspondence. Many colleagues still sitting around me today were part of that fight, alongside campaigners, lobby groups like LGBT Youth Scotland and ordinary people across Scotland who just wanted to marry the person that they love. Over 10,000 couples have since taken advantage of being able to marry, and I wish them all the greatest joy in their marriages and a very happy 10th anniversary this month to those first couples to embrace the change in law. I found it very moving to hear some of their stories repeated in the last few days, and I want to particularly recognise the work of Andrew Henderson, a sports reporter at Highland News Media, because I can't overstate how important it is for the media to represent real people, real relationships and the benefits of treating people equally. Too often we see the work of a minority of journalists who are looking to generate clicks and comments through outrage rather than reporting for good. But the coverage that Andrew gave in the Inverness Courier today to Kevin Crowe and Simon Long, the first Highland couple to take advantage of same-sex civil partnerships, is thorough and empathetic. There are reflections in the piece about the challenges, despite the law allowing it, that they faced in getting their partnership recognised, the backlash that they faced from locals who wrote to the local newspaper, and the response of the Catholic Church, which they are committed members of. The step forward in legislation here precipitated other changes, like the Church of Scotland and Scottish Episcopal Church allowing members to conduct religious ceremonies for same-sex marriages. And I know how important it is to LGBTQ+ people of faith to be able to marry their loved one in a way that also reflects their faith, and I hope that more churches will follow that example. I want to highlight one quote from the piece, which goes, "We both recall the days when the expression of our love was considered to be a crime and our sexuality a mental illness. So we decided we wanted to enter a civil partnership on the earliest date allowed by law, which was the 21st of December 2005. When same-sex marriage was introduced, we also wanted to be married as soon as possible. We took our civil partnership documents to the council offices and the registrar changed its status to a marriage, so our marriage certificate is actually dated 2005. And I love that they've been able to have their civil partnership, which was to them a marriage in all but name, recognised in the way that they saw it. And I'm sure that there are many out there with on-paper anniversaries that don't reflect how long they know they've been married, and we must ensure that that's not the case for couples in future. Because now we've made it to a decade of same-sex marriage equality in Scotland, but progress is a constant battle and achievements are not promised forever. What is done can be undone. And there are threats to that right, and people who would see it removed, just as there are couples out there in Scotland who still cannot marry the person that they love without official documents misrepresenting their identity, trans people without a gender recognition certificate. And there are mixed-sex couples who may also be LGBTQ+, who are still unable to convert their marriage to a civil partnership if they wish, which is something I've written to the Minister and the UK Government on, seeking to rectify. What I'm saying is there's a lot more to do. And when I lodged this motion, I sat and I wondered for a long time about how the vote would go if it were held today, had we not been able to get that legislation passed. And I couldn't answer with certainty, nor be sure that the bill would actually become an act, because as an LGBTQ+ member of this Parliament, I've seen LGBTQ+ phobia. I've been personally subject to homophobia in the building, and I've heard people say things about others and even themselves that haunt me. So I do appreciate the difficulty of the environment right now in proceeding with making the next necessary progress, despite the SNP's clear commitment and record on it. This Parliament, reflecting that one which allowed same-sex marriage 10 years ago, overwhelmingly supported changes to GRCs for the trans community, and the bill was then blocked by the UK Government. And much of the correspondence that I received during that bill's progress and much of the commentary on social media strayed between transphobia and homophobia very quickly and easily. And it was a reminder of how far we still have to go. And when I was in the minister's position, the stories of conversion practices that I was told by LGBTQ+ people were harrowing and heartbreaking and even painful to listen to and to recall. So I can understand why we are struggling to make progress on trans rights, on banning conversion practices, torture, which is sadly and horrifically still being inflicted on LGBTQ+ people in Scotland today, and on non-binary equality. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try and make any small steps that are possible and call out the behaviours and the speech which seeks to tear down my community and force us back into the shadows. I would rather lose trying to do the right thing than not attempt it at all, and at least the LGBTQ+ community will be certain that we're on their side. Given the new Labour government has shamefully refused to lift the Tories' veto on the democratically reached position of this Parliament on the Gender Recognition Reform Bill, and just last week denied access to puberty blockers for trans youth, I'm sure that the Minister will understand why there's little confidence out there that these are the actions of a government that might take positive steps on banning conversion practices. So I'd be very grateful if she could expand on the current position of the Scottish Government on bringing forward the bill that was planned. And I'll conclude by just reiterating my deep joy for all those who have been able to marry in this country, celebrating themselves and their relationships and having all of that love recognised in law, just as mixed-sex couples could do before.